Welcome to the
On wax.
And welcome to episode 14 of Rainbows on Wax. My name's Alex.
I'm Steve.
We have a very special guest here today. First guest on Rainbows on Wax.
Jack McCullaugh, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for having me, fellas.
Come all the way from
Coolum.
Coolum.
Big drive.
Awesome. And I guess maybe to start this off, how did you two meet?
How did we meet, Jack?
I think the first time we met properly was maybe at the Little Temple warehouse.
Yeah, at the warehouse.
Through some mutual friends.
What's the Little Temple warehouse?
So
For
Little
those who
Temple
don't know.
Records are some friends of ours who basically put on shows.
Yeah.
Sunshine Coast, get touring bands and local bands coming in, and they for a while had this epic warehouse just in the Coolum industrial area.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it was right around the time I moved back here from Melbourne, and I was like pretty in desperate need of like finding some
Community,
creative
yeah.
community, and just so happened to be a 5-minute drive down the road, and I think that's where we kind of met first. I think.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly that.
Yeah, and just as you do at a gig, just got chatting, and I think we had a few mutual friends.
Yeah.
Used to live in that house.
Yeah.
Another mutual friend's house.
So there's this property in Yaroomba in Coolum Beach that many musicians have lived in. There's like this beautiful aura around it.
Does
that
it still exist?
It still exists.
Still
I was,
exists.
there, I
So-
was there a couple of weeks ago, actually.
So-
Fish tacos.
So Doogs from Dr. Shaw's Unusual Practice, they started that band there. Is that correct?
Yeah, maybe guessing the first iteration of
Yep.
it somewhat. Maybe.
Dr. Shaw's was there.
Yep, back in the day.
And then there was Richo, who's like a vinyl DJ. Then myself. Then Stinkin' Jim and Lily Tallulah lived there. And then... Oh, no, sorry, not Lily Tallulah. Stinkin' Jim lived there. And then Chucho moved in.
Oh, yep.
So it was just like had this like fluid transition of musicians go through there.
Yeah, nice.
And didn't you record the first like Doonan
Yeah, one of
record
the...
there, or one of the first things there?
We recorded 2 tracks in that. I remember I was with a girl at the time, and she just like come home and she's like, what the fuck have you done to the place? And there was just like mattresses and shit. Like the whole place had been turned into a recording room.
Sick.
And it was like a granny flat, basically.
Yeah, it's such a nice place.
Timber thing with like a tiered ceiling, like so beautiful. On the nature reserve of
Yeah.
Yaroomba.
And musicians can still afford to live there somehow.
Well, don't know what the price is now.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a
all right, I
lot
know
different.
that Toby's mum's still hooking him up.
Yeah, good. Good. We'll have to rent it off her one day.
Yeah.
But yeah, we met, I guess, through that avenue, and then maybe a bit deeper chatting, and I knew Steve was a producer and that kind of stuff.
Because you
and
guys have worked together.
we have worked together now, yeah. Probably started initially maybe a year or so ago,
Yeah.
I guess. I think I tentatively showed you some demos, and I was like, what do you reckon? We can do something with this? And then,
Such good demos.
yeah, the rest is history. The rest is history.
We basically use those demos,
Yeah.
right? So Jack wrote an album,
Yep.
demoed it in his own space. What'd you have, a 58?
SM57.
57, even
Yep.
better. And
That's it.
D-odd guitars, and you just put layer in.
Yeah.
And I just picked up where you left off.
Yeah.
And we did some editing. We chose the best bits. We maybe re-recorded some guitar parts.
Bit of bass. and
Bit of
some
bass.
guitar.
We produced the drums.
Yeah.
Like every track has its own kind of drum sound.
But you swayed me that way. I was definitely like of the mind of like, these are just demos. Maybe we can do something with them. You're like, I don't know. I think they got a little bit of a feeling or a little bit of something, which I'm so thankful that you pushed me in that direction though, because it worked out so well. And yeah, I think we've probably all had that experience where you're trying to recreate something
Some yeah.
post demo, and then it's just like, oh, it just doesn't have that same
Man, like there's
Flavor or
a
something.
beauty in an artist's when they're so safe in their own space, right? And they just put their best work in that way. Sometimes you just got to lean on that. Like,
I was very hermited in, and it was my first experience recording myself. I've always had someone else in the acts I've played in who's been a recording guy or you know, like that kind of thing. So I was kind of just doing it out of necessity more so than anything, not expecting to use anything. And then went into the final product. So
And that's
Mate.
what people can hear.
and that's what people will be hearing. Yeah.
That's what people will be listening to right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
yeah, you've got what Swim is out now.
Yeah, so the band title is Jack Dylan and the Villains, and we just released our debut single nearly a month ago called Swim.
It's
You can
doing
find
well
it on-
too.
It is doing well. Find it on all the platforms.
Nearly 2,000 listens already.
Yeah,
How good.
yep. And there's a tasty little clip on YouTube for anyone to check out if they
Nice.
want to as well.
Such good work, bro.
Yeah,
Great songs. Great
it's a little bit
songs.
trial and error, but no, I'm happy with it and have you to thank, of course.
Mate, my pleasure.
Yeah.
So in our previous episode, we spoke a little bit about music that made us.
Mm.
Maybe you could chime in a little bit on this. Like,
Yeah.
you know, if people have already heard your music out there or if they're about to listen to it, I find it's pretty interesting to know. The first question I normally ask people is like, what's the first CD? We're probably of the generation of CDs.
Yeah,
I would assume.
absolutely.
That you bought with your own money.
Mm.
So not a parent's one or anything
Yeah.
like that. It's like something that you've kind of gone out and gone, I need this.
I've often heard interviews with people and they have really great, like, tasteful things that they say to the answer to this question, but mine was definitely the Eminem show.
Yes. Perfect.
There's nothing wrong with that, bro.
No, there's nothing wrong
Nothing
with that.
wrong with it.
As we were discussing earlier.
Yeah.
But then I also remember the first time I ever bought a album and was like, had started playing music already. It was like a John Butler Trio's Sunrise Over Sea.
We were just looking at that.
I got it on the shelf over there.
We were just looking at that on the
I
shelf.
just replayed it the other day with a friend, and it's still pretty good.
It's
a
an
great-
I
amazing
don't really
album,
listen to John
man.
Butler very much anymore, but like that album was particularly good.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah, so they were kind of the first ones, I guess. But I think when I got a little, like a touch older, and I started like really tapping in, the first one that kind of
So what were you, like 12 or something?
no, this, about 12 then for that, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe a little bit older for John Butler Trio, but no, I was living up here and I was like 16 or something, and that whole like coastal,
Stomp boxes and like,
yeah, that, and then
acoustics.
like remember Ben Harper was enormous
Oh,
for
yeah,
a
yeah,
while.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
really into Ben Harper for a while.
Yeah, I love Ben Harper.
Yeah, so I was like, right when I started playing music, all that stuff was huge, and
Yeah.
I was kind of like right into that kind of stuff. Beautiful Girls as
Yeah.
well.
Dude, that's
Um,
so interesting because your music now is like, it's quite dark.
It's nothing like that, no.
country,
Yeah.
like experimental.
Yeah, I guess it was kind of like all you're exposed to at the time, right? Though?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
being in like a coastal area or what you're seeing on at that like LimeWire and stuff like we
Yeah,
were talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
before, or like
You know, what your friends like, I guess,
What your
at
friends
school
like.
and what you're sort of being influenced by.
yeah, and then getting a little bit older, I was kind of like discovered bands like The Drones and
Oh, yeah.
anything Jack White related or
Yep.
Josh Homme related, and
So that's where the musicality influence would come
I would say
from
so.
more
That was about when it all kind
Well,
of.
not from Eminem.
Wow. You never know.
my
You might rap
career
on
is
them.
yet to start,
Yeah,
but
The next
lyrically.
record might have some raps. We'll see.
definitely was running the like mime rap in the mirror to Eminem show when I first got it with the 8 Mile beanie on, and,
Yeah.
100%.
which I'm sure a lot of us were doing at the time.
100%. I just find it's interesting, like, you know, we're not like always the style that we play.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody is. I think we all have these kind of broad
Yeah, for sure.
sort of, you know, musical tastes and so influenced by friends and, you know, what we have the capability of
Yeah, yeah.
finding as well, which again, being in Australia, like, and in those times wasn't as easy.
Yeah,
It wasn't just available to us
100%, man.
down the road, and Sanity would only have certain items. And
Absolutely.
the rise of the independent
Yeah.
record stores and stuff finding alternative music.
One thing that I do remember that I kind of was helping me discover at the time is a family friend bought me a subscription to Rolling Stone magazine,
Oh yeah.
and
Good friend.
Yeah. And I like had a subscription to Rolling Stone magazine for probably like 5 or 6 years. And, you know, used to get it every month or whatever that was coming out, and would read about all these like bands that I'd never heard of. And then I'd like type them into LimeWire, and, you know, someone like, I don't know, the Hives or, you know, that whole era, the Strokes, Kings of Leon, those bands, and, you know,
Kings of Leon.
kind of tapping into that untouched world that you kind of wouldn't hear on your regular radio or anything like that. Probably wasn't even listening to Triple J or anything at that time either.
No, I've definitely dipped in and out of Triple J over the years. Like, I felt like I did a little bit when I was younger, and then kind of not for a long time. Like, radio really wasn't a thing.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely not.
during teen years. Like,
wasn't
probably
because
because you
to work on the job site.
Exactly. If you're at work or if you're
yeah.
driving in a car or something like that, like, that's really kind of when you get that extra access to radio.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So predominantly, where did you grow up? Up here?
I grew up in Brizzy until I was about 13.
Yeah.
And then moved up here.
Sunshine Coast for any
Sunshine
people
Coast,
who
yep.
listening
My
from
family was
overseas.
in Majimba, so we moved to Majimba. But I was like really into playing rugby league when I was a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
That was kind of like what came first. And then around the time we moved up here, I was like crossing over into music, and then music just ended up taking over.
Yeah.
So
You'll find some footy samples in the music too.
Yes, it hasn't left me.
We've got the
Got
commentators
some
in there.
commentary samples going on
Still
there.
in there?
Yeah. But then kind of finishing school, and about 19, I was like left home, moved back to Brisbane, you know, was playing in some bands and stuff around that time. And then floated between the Gold Coast here, did a bit of traveling, and then ended up moving to Melbourne when I was about 22, and was there until a couple of years ago.
Yeah, well, how was that? How was, like, you know, Melbourne kind of arguably one of the cultural centres of Australia. Did you find that, you know, it gave you any benefit?
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
music and
Absolutely.
like inspired you?
Yeah,
I guess, like,
100%, man.
was that from the people around you, or where you lived and things?
Well, I kind of moved there, had a bunch of other friends who had maybe moved down a year prior.
Yeah.
And I was like a little bit maybe tentative or scared to maybe move down there, just because I had never moved that far away from family, all the rest. But then I had a...
Were they musician friends?
Yeah, all musician and artisan, you know, did the classic thing of leaving the small rural place to move to the city and
Do any
give
of
it a
them still
go.
play in bands? Or?
Yeah. A couple of them. So one of my close friends, Dougal, who we mentioned before, I played in his band Dr. Shaw's Unusual Practice for about 3 or so years before moved up here, and we had a few other projects together. But I wasn't playing in a project when I moved down there, and I was kind of like going to gigs every night. You know, it's like go to a city and you're like, oh my God, they play gigs nearly every night. I can go see a different band every night.
And people go to gigs in Melbourne?
People go to gigs every night. So in any genre you can think of. So I was very immersed in that. And then it took about a year or so to kind of at least get the courage or kind of meet the people to start playing. And and then just kind of became a sponge basically, and you know, playing with all these amazing musicians who I'd kind of either knew a couple of them prior to moving down or had met. And then it's so easy when you're going to gigs so often to meet like-minded people, and just met this whole amazing community. And so to answer your question of whether it inspired and stuff, like very, very much so. I think it definitely made me the musician I am, at least today, for sure.
Well, we talk about it a lot, and I think it's something that people, whether you're aware of it or not, like, it's community that makes us, you know, and it makes us as individuals, and it makes us as a community as well. You know, we're all a part of sort of something that can hopefully be a little bit bigger than the sum of its parts.
I couldn't agree more, man. And when I moved back up here, so my wife and I moved back up here just post-COVID, and you know, having those couple of years down there with the lockdowns and stuff, and then moving up here and not really knowing anyone at all, that really like reinforced that whole thing. I was like, oh my God, community is, it's everything.
Yeah, community's key.
And, you know, found it like on the surface up here, and like it's easy to go, oh, you know, you've just got surf culture or whatever else you want to call whatever else is out there, but just scratch below the surface, and there's like an amazing amount of creative people doing very cool things up here, as you both know.
It is the underground up here, right? Like
very much
it's
so.
an abundant underground, right? And something like Brisbane, that's kind of a normalized thing. Like everyone goes to those house parties, everyone seeks out those warehouse parties and stuff, but they barely like you said, it doesn't scratch the surface like it does a station show or like a Enmore Theatre show in Sydney, or a forum show. Like that's somewhat mainstream in its reach, but
I absolutely know what you mean.
You had to dig, right?
There's an abundance of stuff in Melbourne in particular, but like major cities and different areas. But that's what I almost found most impressive about anyone who either played music or was involved in any form of arts up here, is like they do it because they love it. And they're not doing it because they're going to get like 500 people come down and watch them play. Like they just fucking enjoy doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
It was very cool to come to that realization and kind of like, see similar people going to the gigs and to the art shows, and like for me being kind of a newcomer, realizing that you all somewhat knew each other in one way or another, and it was a very enlightening experience for me, because I was almost like moving back up here. I wasn't ready to like pack it in creatively, but I was like, it's a lot quieter up there, and maybe I'll just plod along doing my thing, but realized very soon after that I needed it, that the community and that kind of stuff. So
that itch you had to scratch, right?
Yeah.
When was it that the album came along? Because we didn't know each other for long before we started that work, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've got a lot of artist integrity. You do visual art as well. I know you do support work. So from the record, I kind of pull a lot of influence from the people you're working with.
Very
and
much
stuff,
so, yeah.
So where did the album inspiration come from in such a short amount of time? Like, were you just forcing yourself to write in those moments?
Well, I've always written songs forever. I think I've been doing it since I was maybe 14 or something. And probably maybe for the 5 years or so leading up to us meeting, I'd been playing in groups that I wouldn't say were my group, if that makes sense, in a collective, and there was definitely like collaborative aspects to it. But I always had like my own kind of, a few of my own songs kind of bubbling away in the background, and every now and again I'd do a little solo show or something like that, but it was never a super large focus. But this record started, I guess, probably in about the lockdown kind of era, 2020 probably, in Melbourne. I think there's maybe a few songs, so there's 10 songs on the record, and I would say half of them were written in that time in Melbourne before I moved. So there's a lot of isolation themes and all that kind of stuff, but only ever just in my head. And I didn't even have my own like recording setup at that time either. I was kind of very much late to the party on that. And then I moved up here and I was like, fuck, I'm going to have to like do this all myself because I don't know anyone. So I bit the bullet and got myself a little setup. And then as soon as I kind of did that, I just kind of started fleshing out those songs, and then continued to write maybe, another 5 songs. But it was a very weird, bizarre transitional time because, like I said, we kind of escaped Melbourne to come up here to have a little bit of a fresh start.
Yeah.
And in the process, trying to escape the isolation and all that of those 2 years, found ourselves in almost a more isolated position, and my brain was just going,
what have you done?
What have you done? What's going on? And then I guess, all those songs kind of came out of that time. And then that was around the time that we kind of met. And then they just kind of seemed like a bit of a cohesive group of tunes. And then I was like, I should do something with these at least.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I want to get a band together and do it. And then you were like, dude, let's just do it. Yeah. Let's just, you and I do it. And and then that'll come later, which it has. And it's been a blessing in disguise. It's been very good. But to answer your question, those songs kind of just came out of that bizarre transitional period of my life. Yeah.
Therapy.
Very much so. Very
Right.
much so. Needed it. And yeah, to go back to what you're saying about the support work guys, like I work with a bunch of guys in the mental health realm. And whilst I was kind of struggling with my own
Yeah.
mental health challenges, I was starting to work with a bunch of all these kind of new, interesting guys.
Yeah.
And it was all just feeding into this one kind of channel, I guess. And yeah, all these songs kind of just fell out, and it was just like, yeah.
Because it wasn't just music either. You had a gallery exhibition with a bunch of acrylic canvases.
Yeah.
And, like, even your artistic style there is very different, man. I don't know anyone that does a style like that. Like, it's
Yeah.
almost like abrasive, like
It's
magnitude of
it's a
color.
lot of, but it's like quantity. Just
Quantity of
like
colour.
layering lots of paint. But yeah, it was a similar thing to the recording thing. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I had some friends in Melbourne, and we had a little space for a while, and we used to just get down there and we just started not teaching ourselves to paint, but kind of just started doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because as a release or therapy or whatever, and then do a few little like fun little group exhibitions and stuff like that, and just kind of kept doing it. And yeah, it just comes back to what we were talking about before. I wanted to like find a bit of community up here. I was like, what are you going to do? And then met the Little Temple guys who we were discussing earlier, Jamie and Jake and Max, and they had this warehouse we were discussing earlier at the time, and they were like, yo, you want to do like an exhibition? I was like, yep. And it gave me a bit of a goal, I guess, to kind of do stuff. And then met even more people through that, I guess.
Yeah.
So it was all kind of just feeding this hunger to find the crew, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Which is continuing, obviously, to this day. And it's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah. So it's just like this gigantic output over a short period of time, really.
Yeah, I guess so.
Any other artist would spend, like we talked about artists spending decades on an album, or sometimes even a song, like they'll hang on to that shit forever, Like it's impressive, man. Like
thank you.
How we're able to just be like, vomit. There's a piece of art.
Well, I think it's like I remember a fair few years ago now, I did that as well. I sort of dived into a bit of art and like used pastels and the permanency of it. And it's like, unlike music where if anyone knows, like if you're recording, you've got, a million opportunities to kind of re-record things and
Control Z.
redo stuff. Whereas with like paint, you don't. It's a little bit more like make up your mind and sort of go with it. And I think a lot of artists need a little bit of that.
Absolutely, man.
In what they're doing, because they get hung up on like, I mean, a great one that you raised is, do I need a band for this? Like, I need the band, and you put in these like obstacles almost in the way of actually just kind of putting out music, which is
that's the goal.
The goal, it's where you want to end up.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to also just one of those things, like you're always going to be able to find like a million excuses to stop yourself from doing something, which I was doing prior to this process. And I was in a bit of a safety net of like being around other musicians who had the opposite attitude. They were like, we'll get it done, and I was, I guess, maybe along for the ride or whatever. But being thrown into a position where you're like, well, if I want anything to get done, I'm just gonna do it. And you could be like, oh, wait for a band, but like just do it and make it happen, and then the things will come, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if it's a good exercise out there for young artists to get into a bit of painting or a bit of drawing.
100%. It doesn't even have to be good. I've been doing actually a bit of painting with one of the guys I work with, who is a wood carver, does these like amazing wood carvings, but he's like, oh, can we do some painting together or something like that? I was like, absolutely. He's like, I don't know what to do, but I'm like, it doesn't matter, dude. You just get 100%. A pile of different colors and just go nuts.
Yeah,
exactly. Right.
It doesn't matter what it looks like if you're having fun or and then I'm going, oh, I can see this shape in here and this kind of color looks like this and all that kind of stuff, and he's frothing on it, and I think that's all it's about. It's just doing something, and if you're enjoying it, that's all that matters, I think.
That's right. 100% in music too. Like whatever it is, pick up your guitar, pick up your instrument, have a sing, say whatever it is, sing it however you want.
It's not always going to be good.
Most of the time it's not.
No.
Most of the time it isn't, and that's fine. But like, you got to get through the shit to get to the good stuff, like
Absolutely.
half the time anyway. And even if you're just picking up a small piece of something that is good,
Yeah.
you know, you don't know if you wouldn't have stumbled onto that melody already or...
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
And it's the same principle of like, you know, I've never thought of myself as being a good like jamming musician, but I've definitely played in groups and with friends and stuff where you have that like, you know, you can be jamming for quite a while.
Yeah.
15 minutes, 20 minutes or longer. And there can be one passage in that whole 15, 20 minutes. And you're like, if you're smart enough to record it, be like, hey, that's a hook for a tune, or that's like something to work on.
Yeah. Yeah. But if you didn't do it,
Yeah.
you would never have it.
Yeah, that's right.
It's gone.
Yeah.
It's definitely
Always.
gone.
Yeah.
There's been a billion lost ideas to forgetting to press record or anything like that.
100%. Yeah, there's so many out there. So this project has been now released. Is there another project?
Well, so we've had the first single has been released off this.
Yep.
So there's going to be another single and video dropping in about a month's time.
Yep.
And then the album will be dropping later in the year, looking at about November-ish at
Nice.
this stage, November, December.
Can we know what single is coming? Or is it a secret?
No, it's not a secret. The next single will be called Beyond the Banks.
Cool.
And it's the opening track to the album.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty exciting. And we're going to do got the Dr. Shaw's crew coming up as part of their album tour. I'm going to be playing a show with them at Boiling Pot Brewery with another fantastic Melbourne band called It Thing.
Cool.
Yeah. And that is on the 18th of August.
Look at you. You got it all sorted, man. Good on you.
This should be out before then.
This will be out before then. This will be a good promo for it.
Excellent. Excellent.
I was just thinking, I was like, are we just dropping dates here that is like...
I hope that date's right.
The 18th of August,
I'm
that was
pretty
4
sure.
days ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
rehearsing with the band quite a bit.
Yep.
Are you still writing stuff? Are you still creating new things?
I'd say a lot of been jamming with the band every week. So we only had a first debut show, probably just after we released that first single. Played with this amazing Northern Rivers act called Gimme.
Gimme.
And another band called Fat Dog and the Tits. You've probably heard of them.
I've seen those guys.
Yeah, they're
We got to
awesome.
get we got to
Really
get
good.
Fat Dog on the podcast
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she'd be great.
Yeah.
So that was fantastic. So yeah, there was a lot of like lead up to, I guess, show number 1 and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and piecing together the band and stuff. Steve was in the band for a hot minute, but
Yeah.
is the busiest man in Australia, so
Yeah.
passed on the reins to another fella.
Yeah.
But so there's a lot of time getting that together, and then to be honest, I'm spending a lot of time learning how to put music out and doing
Yeah.
that
Oh,
whole
yeah.
process, which takes a considerable amount of attention and detail and stuff
Yeah.
like that, I guess. I've been fortunate to have some help, but a lot of that. But the band's still been practicing weekly, and I've kind of got a bunch of song ideas, half-done songs, all that kind of stuff that's kind of, bubbling at the surface, if that kind of
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Ready
cool.
to kind of like, when I feel like I'm ready to dive in a little bit more, I'll start demoing them and stuff. Got a couple down, but kind of, I guess just it feels good to have the ball rolling and the band kind of ticking along and song
Yeah.
coming out, and
Yeah.
I can relax a little bit now and
Yeah.
probably sink into some more new tunes or something.
Man, it's been a massive couple of years. Like
Yeah, I guess.
in terms of artistic output, like I'm very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
proud. I'm proud.
Yeah.
I'm a proud
thank
mother
you.
over here.
Definitely could not have done it without you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the next one. Maybe a studio for the next one. Maybe
Definitely a
bit
studio
more
for the next
hi-fi.
one. And with the full band as well.
Yeah.
It's been interesting to watch those songs develop in the live format with all the players have kind of it's become much more of a
Characterized.
a bit
Yeah,
more
yeah.
vicious than of course, on the recordings it's just myself and yourself on a couple of things, but definitely a more immersive experience, if
Yeah.
that makes
Cool.
sense.
That's exciting. The evolution of the project. and-
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
man.
So I think record or EP number 2 will be a whole new beast, I think.
Sick.
For sure. But yeah, just excited to start playing some shows. Got a bunch of nice gig offers coming through and a few lined up for later in the year. I'm actually going to Japan soon, so
Very nice.
For
G'day.
work or pleasure?
for
Or
pleasure.
both?
For pleasure.
For sake and
For
ramen.
sake, yeah. I've never been before, so my wife and I are going for a little trip, so have a little time out and then come back and just get like really stuck into it and hopefully start doing a little bit of traveling and a little bit of touring and stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be very exciting. Very excited to
Yeah.
get it all started.
Hopefully see some gigs in Japan. I've always wanted to go. I briefly stopped there once, like on the way to Europe, but
Yeah.
like not enough to like.
Oh, dude, I realized I had no idea about Japan at all until we booked
Yeah.
tickets and I like started researching. I'm like, it's going to be like going to a different universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm going to be very large by the time I come back though with all of the ramen.
Yeah,
and,
food has got to
Yeah.
be like the main reason like we want to go anywhere. I think
Yeah.
it's definitely high on the list for me.
Oh,
but
dude.
I remember too, like when I went to Hawaii on our honeymoon, I was like, oh, we're in Hawaii, like we should check if there's a gig.
Yeah.
And I think it's sometimes low on the list.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Especially when it's like we're doing hotels and restaurants and stuff like that. But
100%.
you definitely got to like find some sort of gig or like a bar because I reckon Japan's got some wicked scenes going on.
Yeah, yeah. A mutual friend of ours, Sam Markovich, who's playing in the band, he just went over to Japan for his honeymoon and he is into some very obscure music, and he has given me some serious recommendations and shown me some videos, and he's like, basically anything you want to find here, you will be able to find.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty keen to like get stuck in. I've done a little bit of research. It sounds like there's an incredible music scene in Tokyo, at least anyway.
Yeah.
So it'd be good to dive into that a little bit.
I've always wanted to go to Harry Potter World. My wife's been.
My wife's
It's
very
a Harry
excited
Potter
to go to
world.
Harry
Your
Potter
wife's
world.
keen on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Okay.
My wife's like not even into Harry Potter, but her friend was like an actor there, and she got to go, and I didn't go with her. Like it was like a friend thing.
It's
but
part
I'm
of like
big
the
into it.
Universal Studios,
That's
maybe.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
okay.
But there's a whole thing there.
yeah, yeah.
I don't
It
know.
looks pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It looks very intense. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. If you can peel me away from the street food and
Yeah.
sake bars.
No, you got to do the touristy things too. You got to like keep the wife happy and
Yeah, yeah,
do all that
absolutely.
fun stuff.
Go watch some Baby Metal.
Baby metal. I want to go to a sumo
Sumo.
Sumo,
a sumo match. I don't know if that's the right thing to call it, but
Sumo fight.
looks intense and wild and like like a wild experience.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Actually, I didn't even think about that. I was like,
Yeah.
Man, it looks so. I was watching some stuff on YouTube the other day. I was like, this looks so intense.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sumo was a big thing. I feel like when we were younger, like it was like sinking sand, quicksand. Like I thought quicksand was going to be a big part of my life.
And sumo
Growing up.
wrestling.
Sumo wrestling.
Sumo wrestling.
Did
like
you-
Twisters?
Did you ever get into a one of those inflatable sumo suits? Did you ever do
No.
that? That shit was
Yeah. No, I
Like
never
run
got to
into
do
each
that.
other.
Yeah.
Mm.
like some of the best
I
party
did the like
Yeah.
basic version of that where you hold like a yoga ball and
Yeah.
like sprint
Oh,
into
yeah,
each
yeah.
other. And you,
If
We
one
were-
person stands
Yeah,
still, the
yeah,
other
they-
person
they're
is
gone.
wrecked. Yeah.
We were just on the other podcast. We were talking about Viva La Bam and Jackass. And
Oh,
stuff,
yeah.
So yeah.
that was very
Inspired.
much of our talking about albums that made you and stuff like that. That era of all those shows. Maybe there wasn't even just those guys. It was like there was the Swedish guys,
The Dudesons.
the
Yeah,
Dudesons.
the dudes.
And there was another one from the
Dudesons.
UK, and they were next
they were
level.
the most
Who were
intense.
they?
They were called Dirty Sanchez.
Dirty
And they were all
Sanchez.
Welsh. And they
Didn't he
used
cut off his finger or something?
cut off his tip of his finger.
Yeah.
One of them also got liposuction, and the other one drank it. They were like a little bit far.
They were so far.
That must have been taken from basketball. Because you remember basketball, and he's like, it's liposuction from fucking whatever's ass.
Marlon Brando's ass.
Yeah, Marlon Brando's ass. Yeah, and they were probably like, yeah.
Probably
that's
my
actually
most
dope.
quoted movie as a kid was that movie.
It was basketball.
Yeah, watched it with my mum when I was like 9. And then I went to school the next day just like quoting all these quotes.
And that's the South Park guys, right?
South
Yeah.
Park.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Off
I'm a big
topic,
fan of
but
that.
there's some artistic integrity right there. Like,
absolutely.
Well, we talk about this too. It's like music isn't always about music making. It's about where you get inspiration from. And
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
hanging out with friends and like, building a community. It's like, every musician, we don't always get together and like, okay, everyone quiet.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's listen to music.
here's a question. Where's the strangest place you'd pulled inspiration from? For a song. There you go. I think
You
I
already
know.
said
I think
Eminem.
you know what the answer you're searching for.
Yes.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. It's a loaded question.
It was a loaded question.
I was like, are you fishing here, Steve?
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
What is it?
Well, that one you're referring to is a guy I work with had a a pet rat named Midnight.
Midnight the Rat.
Midnight the rat, and
that.
he died. It passed away,
Yep.
and he buried it under a hydrangea plant, and literally just had the phrase "midnight under hydrangea" in my head, which often is like how a song will start for me. I'll have just like a word or maybe a phrase or something like that, and I had that, and then it, a song basically just popped out of that about the blight of this poor rat.
I
It
love that song.
ended up
right?
under a hydrangea plant in his garden.
But that's it, eh? It's like it is those kind of weird scenarios, like things that people do, things that
yeah.
people say.
Absolutely.
It's like, whoa, I've never heard that.
Do you guys
Those words put
know
together.
Bonnie Prince Billy, that artist, the American? He's like a folk guy.
No.
He plays in a bunch of different kind of acts and stuff. And I heard this interview with him the other day, and he was saying that he gets his wife to just write words or things on his, like, you know, where you keep notes on your fridge,
Yeah.
something like that. Mm-hmm. And she'll just write a list of things, just random kind of things, and he'll write songs from that, or like it can be a song title or a song, you know,
Lyric in a song.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he's like, he's written like countless songs.
Wow.
From that, yeah, it's definitely worth listening to if you haven't tapped into that before.
That's
Yeah,
a way to
very
work
cool.
the muscle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, you see, like those freestyle rappers and stuff, like they
They're
love that
ridiculous.
sort of stuff
Yeah,
where they're
yeah.
just like, give me 4 words
yeah.
or whatever, like those TikTok guys, and it's really impressive. But it, you know, if you were just sort of young, going, oh, that's something that's just reserved for hip hop. It isn't.
yeah. No,
You
absolutely.
know,
not.
it's you can just sort of find and take things anywhere.
yeah,
I find that like when that happens too, like what you're dealing with is creativity.
yeah,
So that muscle or whatever that thing is that is creativity, when that stretches and is like
Yeah.
exercise,
yeah.
you get the
100%.
Yeah.
Those rappers are incredible. Those
Yeah,
stream of consciousness thing that they can
Right.
like tap into is just
Yeah.
And the articulation, like,
yeah.
I reckon I could tap in, but articulating it in that way, that's like
Yeah,
that's like
no
joining 2 dots
Yeah.
by force, you know.
using rhythm and
Oh,
melodies with
Crazy.
your vocabulary and
Yeah.
having it all somehow make sense.
yeah.
Yeah. There's that weird interview with Lil Wayne where that guy's like reading back his lyrics and like he's like wasn't even aware of what he was saying. And he's like, I said that. Because I don't think he writes any of it down. I was like, oh, what a funny thing. Like, you know, everyone's like process is so different.
Jay-Z
Yeah.
is like he writes nothing down
He
apparently.
doesn't write anything down
No.
either. Yeah.
That's insane to me.
It
Yeah.
seems insane, right? Like with the
Yeah.
amount of words, like folk musicians, rock musicians, it's like, okay, maybe you don't need to write
Not a
down
rapper.
20 words.
Especially him, he has a lot of songs
There's a lot of
with a lot of words.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was incredible when I heard that. But yeah, everyone's got their process, I guess.
So you definitely write stuff down.
Oh yeah, I also realized a little while ago that it's so important to write it down and never be like, I'll write it down later, or I'll remember that, you know, in a few hours when I'll stop doing what I'm doing. Like, countless things have been lost for me, and I'm sure everyone else, like by going, yeah, I'll do it later. But that's why having an iPhone or a smartphone is so good now, because if you've got like a phrase or anything like that, or even a melody, you can be like,
Yep.
hum it into your phone or write
Yeah.
down the words and
Yeah, yeah.
that kind of stuff. So yeah, always I think I
Yeah.
always write it down now.
No matter how big or small, I think it's like write it down.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
whether it's a whole song or just like a little simple idea that you can just be like,
Yeah.
here's a
For sure.
midnight under
Yeah.
hydrangeas. Not that I think maybe you forget that, but
Oh man.
Have you guys,
it is part of the story.
Heard Rick Rubin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you read or heard about his book?
Yes.
Creative Act,
over there.
I believe it's called.
I haven't read it. I was like looking at it in a bookshop yesterday, but I didn't.
It is good.
I've listened
good.
to about half of it in audiobook, and it is amazing.
Yeah.
But he talks about, he's like fully about this idea that you are just like a conduit for, I don't know, channeling artistic things that is the universe or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
He's
You're the
like-
messenger.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's because, how is a great piece of art made or a great song created? It's like You know, you have this moment where you're like, oh, that's a cool phrase or a cool word. And he's like, just always be receptive to it. And I was like, if I take one thing away from this Rick Rubin, it is definitely that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Well, we spoke about it on another podcast that when Matt and I went to go and make Telluric that record, his manager at the time sent Elizabeth, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So not Rick Rubin, not as cool. But it was like a TED talk that she was doing on creativity.
Yeah.
And it was really fascinating. And she was basically saying the exact same thing that you're basically this receiver.
Yeah.
Creativity. But then she gave all these examples of like Tom Waits, Ruth Someone, a poet. There was a few different examples and how they do it. And Tom was saying like, for him, it kind of just comes upon him and he needs to write it down. Ruth was saying that it comes over the wind. She lives on like a hill or something, and it came through the wind, and she would see it coming like far away, and then would have to go and like write it down as the wind passed through her. And sometimes it would go past her, and she'd pull it back, and she'd write poems backwards.
Yeah, that's insane.
Wow.
Some people claim that it was in the walls,
Yeah.
in the floor,
And some people claim that they're just like Nick Cave, for example. He's like, I just show up to work and I sit down at my typewriter and just type, and 90% of it's shit, but there'll be something good that comes out of.
Yeah.
But I definitely have never been able to do anything like that. Like show up for like a work thing. I just like rack my brain and be like,
I can do that with production. Like if I open the door, I'm just like, I'll
tap in.
Yeah. Basically wait for it to pour out and then keep seeking until it happens. You know, I'm so in tune with it now that I can just keep pushing until the thing happens.
Yeah.
And then it's the art. Like it's like, okay, it's revealed itself. So there's the path to follow, you know?
Yeah.
Everyone's is different, I guess.
Yeah. Mine's always come from like ridiculousness stuff. Like, again, it's not like we're writing about things that are ridiculous or silly or funny. It can be sad.
Yeah.
Most of the time it is sad. Most of the music I write is quite sad. But I find it's like that ridiculous side that things that you sort of laugh at, like, oh, that couldn't happen.
Yeah.
Or that's not a thing.
Yeah.
You know, like that side of us, that comedic side of us is so philosophical, I guess. Like,
absolutely.
And people would probably claim that most stand-up comedians are kind of modern philosophers because they're observing something and kind of, rewording it back to us, and we go, oh, that's hilarious because that's what I do. And
that's a baffling art form, isn't it? Stand-up.
It's
I just like...
Yeah.
Cannot comprehend doing that, getting up on stage.
No.
And the guys who like work it out on stage too, they're like, oh yeah, I never like the jokes never fully formed. I have to like go and like bomb and lose all my shit for like weeks until the joke's fully formed. Like that just seems like the most terrifying thing in the world.
There's also comedians that do the rap thing and they just spitball in the moment.
Billy Connolly
like they'll just
and
have
stuff.
they'll just have like a whole back catalogue just in the bag, and they'll just like, depending on the crowd, basically.
Yeah. A toxic trait of mine is thinking I could do that.
Yeah, dude.
What, comedy?
Comedy, yeah.
Oh, man.
Like, I'm funny, but I'm not that funny. I've got friends I think could potentially do it, but then it's like, no, it is an art form.
Oh,
and most of the time, like these comedians, like they're writing out jokes, they're fleshing out jokes. It is kind of rare that you would have like a Billy Connolly, somebody who really gets up there with nothing prepared. Like most comedians. It's why I think you can't film their shows, because like they want to tour it.
Yeah, that's right.
And before everyone sees all the jokes, then it's not as funny anymore.
It'd just be terrifying.
Yeah, it'd be
Absolutely,
terrifying.
absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Just that silence, that hanging silence. Like, even after you've played a song live and if the crowd's small or something like that, there's like that silence.
Yeah, there's like
tuning up. Yeah, you're like,
You're
like, hurry up to that next song. Imagine like hitting a punchline and there's just like crickets.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
And it's all got to start somewhere too. Like you would have had to have gone through that bullshit to get. Like they all would have. Like none of them would have just naturally
No
gone,
way.
bang, I'm wicked.
No chance.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Especially when there's like so much multiculturalism around the place. Like there was an event here and they had a bunch of comedians come through, and majority of the crowd were like, I think it was like, maybe, this is a guess, but maybe 60 to 70% of the crowd were like South Americans. So like this tradie got up there and
It's a
he's telling all
specific
these
type of humour.
Aussie jokes, and they're just like,
Not landing.
what are you saying? Like,
Yeah.
they're just sitting there baffled, just clapping because everyone else is.
I wonder that with like podcasts too, because like podcast reels is like kind of some of the most consumed stuff that I see on my phones, and like these sort of
Just the clips of
clips of jokes that
Yeah.
they would have had, and like there is hilarious podcasters like
Yeah.
Theo Von and
Oh yeah, he's very funny.
yeah, and I guess like Joe Rogan like started as a comedian before he kind of ended up in podcasting,
Yep.
and probably arguably probably what he does more so now than stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
But so many stand-up comedians end up in podcasting, and we like consuming podcasts, I think, for two reasons, and it's generally like information about topics that we like. Hopefully that's why people listen to this one. I don't think we're comedians.
No, we're not
I don't
comedians.
think a lot of our content is super funny, although we can maybe get there one day. Or comedy. It's sort of
Yeah.
the two reasons we like
Absolutely.
to consume podcasts, which it's kind of interesting that that's sort of the only two reasons why.
Yeah, but it's the same thing, right? To go back what you're talking about the reels, sometimes a lot of those comedy podcasts, sometimes I'm like, oh, get to the point or something like that. Or
Yeah.
like, but there'll be a couple of clips in there that are like, oh, that's absolute gold.
Yeah. I feel like you've got to be quite controversial.
Yep.
I don't think much of it really works like just kind of general stuff.
No.
I feel like it would be hard to be one of those comedians these days. Like, yeah, because
It'd be hard to have your like personality seen or heard on like your podcast and then go on stage and be a different version of yourself where people are trying to have
Yeah.
to find you funny or something. I've always thought that would
It's so
that'd be quite
revealing.
difficult. Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
some of them are really talking about like the Two Bears guys, like they're
yeah.
talking about like their families and their wives and like, I'm assuming it's got to be mostly true. Like, I know it's a bit more ridiculous, but to bring it back to kind of songwriting, it's like the most successful comedy and podcasting comes from these people who are revealing all.
yeah, yeah.
Arguably music is the same. Like the more that you can reveal in your music and the more vulnerable you can be, probably the more successful the song is going to be.
I think being honest and vulnerable, I think, would definitely what you mean.
Eminem's a prime example.
Yeah.
Comedy, vulnerability, and complete honesty. Like,
Yeah.
Almost to his detriment.
Too much honesty.
hey kids, do you like violence?
Yeah,
Like, you know, it's that, man. It's the extreme of that.
It is, but it's quite ridiculous too. It's like he is talking about violence, he's talking about all these things, but I always say to people, I'm like, do you think someone who makes, however many, especially back then, like however many albums he was making with however many songs, a lot of songs, like probably a lot that didn't make it,
Shit a lot.
would have time to be violent, have time to do anything but make music? Like,
No, he's on tour.
they're like on tour,
Making
yeah.
music. That's all he's doing.
Yeah. It's like they're playing shows, or like, I know he had an addiction thing as well, but it's probably like just to keep you going, with that amount of content that you're making, the amount of songs, the amount of like pushing yourself creativity, like the strain on a brain that would have, and even just playing in front of crowds as well. I think it's another thing that is assumed musicians like to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
100%.
assumed that,
That's a massive assumption.
yeah, you've written all this music and recorded it. It's beautiful. I love it. I want to see it live. But there's plenty of artists that
Find it crippling or
crippling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
I'm
almost expected to do it.
I'm definitely my best self in a studio.
Same. I can't
Like, in
stand
that
doing
environment.
it live. Yeah.
Live, I'm like glasses on, like nobody talk to me until I've finished everything I need to focus on right now.
Yeah.
And I would say I'm probably the opposite to that, whereas I like feel much more comfortable performing or on stage, and if I'm like ever anything's analyzed that I've done recording wise or like writing wise, I'm like judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that way.
Yeah.
How about the fact of being an artist when you're playing a show and then being off the stage? Like, there's two different worlds there too. For me, it's like I'm way more comfortable when I'm doing, like, I've got to do the job. Like, if I've got to go mingle, like, it's so hard for me. I almost become anxious.
Yeah. I don't like it.
It's scary, man. It's
kind of
like,
love
oh,
the
these people
mingle.
want to talk to me and they
You love
want
a
to...
mingle.
I love the mingle.
Yeah.
But then, like, once the job's done, it's just like, yeah, okay, like...
Yeah. Definitely beforehand, I don't enjoy the mingle, but like after the, you have that release and, especially if you feel good about what you've just put out
100%.
there,
Yeah.
love having a yarn and kind of, especially if there's, creative crew in the crowd, or even if people have just specifically come to see you play or, your act or whatever.
Well, I mean, it's kind of, you sort of have to. I feel like
Yeah.
you almost owe the audience.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
like,
Yeah.
I think so.
That small connection after the
Yeah.
show. And again, I was talking to Emily, a musician, a friend of mine yesterday, and we were talking about social media.
Yeah.
In regards to like a music career these days, like it's such an expected thing, for you to do. But I was trying to help her, like, how do you wrap your mind around this? And I said it's about making friends. Like at the core of social media, as much as it can be like pulled apart in all these ways, it's media, it's marketing, it's PR, it's like promoting yourself, and us as musicians who are like, this can be quite a foreign thing for us, is like, oh, I don't want to promote myself.
Yeah.
I don't want to go out there and like tell people, oh, I've been in a studio all day.
It feels very unnatural.
It does.
Yeah.
And often too, like, people don't want to see that. Like, they don't necessarily want to see you in a studio. They don't necessarily want to see you like working out a song or something like that. But they do probably want to be a friend.
Yeah.
So you just take
I think you're definitely right.
the mingle
Yeah.
and put it onto social media and be like, oh, like, just talk about what you've been doing. Like when you go out for a mingle, I'm sure like there is stuff where people might be like, oh man, that was a really great show. Really enjoyed that show. And then quite quickly, I'd say the conversation turns around to normal stuff. Life stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
What beer are you drinking? Can I buy you a beer? What's the beer? Those sort of things. And I think that's where like social media, for artists should be. It's like take whatever that process is of you having friends, having a community, and just pop that onto your social media.
Because at the end of the day, that's all, it should be for, right? Is just connecting.
People being able to
like-minded
relate.
people, or people who may be interested in what you have to say or
100%.
do.
Yeah.
And then, all the PR stuff is, I think, as someone who's trying to get stuff out into the world, you almost feel like this obligation that you have to do stuff. And like, I'm kind of still quite new to doing that myself with my own project, but like, I've seen a lot of friends who, have long running bands and stuff like that. They're like, I need to meet my, 1 post, 2 posts a day, stories, tiles on the Instagram. And like, what it's like. It's just like, if you're not doing it, you're like, I feel like I need to get something out there to remain in the psyche of all my followers or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's
Compartmentalizing it, I think, can help too. Like when you are selling a product, when you have your record, you want people to listen to it on Spotify or buy it.
Yeah.
That's an easy way to go. This is a product that I'm selling.
Yeah.
But then social media, because it's the same platform for both things of you also, having a relationship with people, a friendship or just an acquaintanceship or whatever it is, like they're the people hopefully that go and engage with it and go, and you say, oh yeah, guess what? I woke up today, I had a cup of coffee. I'm thinking about going down to the beach. What's everyone doing today?
Yeah.
And then they chime in, and then might get 1 or 2 comments,
Yep.
from friends, and if you answer them and create this sort of
it can be a
banter
beautiful
online,
thing. Yeah, absolutely.
It can be, and then but you can separate the music a little bit too, and going, hey guys, this is actually like a product that I'm selling, and like I'd love for you to go and listen to it, because that's how you can support it, and you can keep me going that way. You don't have to go into all of that, but you can do tricky things with.
But on a technical side, that's the algorithm working for you as well. Like if you're creating that kind of content and it's super original to you, like you're using your own voice and you're talking to an audience, like Instagram will favor that.
Yeah.
Like that will get more reach.
Yeah.
It's almost like a call to action on your website, for example. Like some businesses will have like, need this service, hit this button, or need this service, email me here, or get in touch here.
Yeah.
Like it's exactly the same thing, just in a far more natural human interaction friend kind of way, right?
Yeah.
So it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And that's what builds like relationships, or builds community. We understand that, when you go to like events and stuff like that, like, yes, you're meeting like-minded people, whether they're artists, whether they're musicians, but I'd say like 9 times out of 10, the conversation, aside from going, yes, we've established we all play music.
Yeah.
We're not getting into these, I know for the sake of a podcast, we do talk about these things, but generally it's like, where do you live?
Yeah.
You know, what are you
It's a
even
human
doing?
conversation.
Yeah, it becomes quite human.
What
and I
beard
think-
oil are you
Yeah.
using?
Yeah.
I need to know, man.
Yeah. Where'd you get that shirt from? Dope shirt. Like, what's that record store? Like, yes, of course, like there's these crossovers, but I think a lot of artists, you know, I'm not, you know, a performing artist, so I don't really have to do these things, but they get caught up. And it's like, no, just keep it simple. Like, go back to like just actually building relationships and building communities with people, because they become fans. They tell their friends about it, and then hopefully more people come to the show and buy a ticket and buy a T-shirt.
Yeah, that's right.
Know? Yeah. Social media is it's
a funny one.
It's a funny one.
But it's at its best, it's an incredibly useful tool for community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just reminding ourselves of that,
Yeah.
I think, is the hard thing, because sometimes we get like, oh, I better get online and play. Please go and listen to my stuff, and it's like we probably don't even like seeing other musicians do that, you know, and we're in the business.
You know when it's too much. Like,
Yeah.
there again.
Yeah, here I'm begging
Between
again.
every single song.
Yeah. By the way, get this.
Yeah.
So maybe you should be in music management or something and doing the other side of it. But yeah,
Speaking of,
what managers?
well, the best thing I've ever seen in that realm of the sale, Bobby Alu's cafe tour, his breakfast tour. So he did 50 cafes around the country, showed up at like 7:30, 8 a.m. to these cafes, played free shows to families, basically, having brekkie and coffee. And the show I saw, it was him and Paulie B playing together because it was a local show. And his manager, like, Bobby said nothing about the record. He's like, this is a new song, blah, 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 plays it. There's merch over there, go get it, blah, blah, blah. But the manager's like, grabs the mic, he's like, I'm going to do this because Bobby's not going to do this. He's like, I'm going to come to all of you in the crowd with this flyer because I only have one flyer. I had a bunch more printed out, but we lost them. He's like, I've only got one QR code, which is the smartest thing. Like, he went to everyone in the crowd. They scanned it and pre-ordered the album.
Yeah.
Bang. Instead of handing out flyers and hoping people would scan it, he walked up to him and they got their phone out in front of him.
100%.
Bit
I
more
would
of
do
an
that.
intimate kind of connection.
Yeah.
It was genius.
In what is already an intimate kind of space. By the sounds of it.
exactly right. So it was just doubling down on
Yeah.
the moment.
That's cool.
In the same like frequency, like the Spotify algorithm just spiked for him. Like it just went multiple. So
That's awesome.
For getting managers or friends, I'm sure there'd be so many like friends. You know, we all got that one friend.
Yeah.
Who's shameless.
yeah,
And will shamelessly take the QR
yes.
code around
Yeah.
to the gig and just be like,
Yeah.
"Oi, fucking
yeah.
There's people out there for a
Support!
reason like that.
yeah,
Support.
yeah, support it."
I know where you live.
Yeah, exactly. Leaning on those friends, making sure we have those friends.
Yeah, nurture those friends, man.
Yeah, they're the ones.
Yeah.
Out there singing and screaming top of their lungs. So how do you like now feel about the Sunshine Coast, and have you put your roots in and like it's
Yeah, absolutely. It took a minute, as we were talking about before, but it honestly was just the finding my people, basically. And as soon as that was kind of out of the way, it was just like a relief, and I was like, I can really appreciate this place for the awesome place it is. Like, all my family live up here, and you know that you'd think that's enough, but
You need the culture.
you need the like-minded people, and obviously we all love our families and stuff, but sometimes you just need to go and talk to someone who knows what you're about in that kind of way. And absolutely adore it up here now.
Yeah.
And it was very rewarding finding a great artistic community up here.
Yeah.
And people who are, like you said, it's kind of the weirdly like the underground, because everyone's just doing it because they love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that will always spark some amazing things.
Yeah.
I think it's
100%,
like
man.
Sunny Coast obviously already has amazing things, and there is stuff that is poking its head up and
Yeah.
starting to make its way
Yeah,
around
yeah.
the world. But I think it's just the beginning.
I mean, you'd know as well, like as someone who's kind of been here and gone and come back and stuff, there's like so much more here now than there was.
oh yeah,
Even
few
since
years
I've been
back.
living here,
Yeah.
man, like
Absolutely.
it's grown exponentially.
Yeah.
Maybe COVID helped that a little bit, but even before that, like
Yeah.
the music scene just has escalated.
Yeah.
People crave it, man.
Because
Yeah.
COVID didn't really hit here like it did in Melbourne.
No.
Is that hence?
Hence
why
why
you-
it grew here though, because people left up
Yeah.
down there and they
Yeah,
came
I'm
here.
getting out of this like
Yeah,
crazy
well, that's-
lockdown, and
That's
they're
why I
like,
was up here. I was
We
like,
got all the artists.
looks great up here.
it's like no one cared.
Yeah.
I mean, they did, but like
Mm-hmm.
not to the point of some of the big cities.
Yeah. It was a nice little haven up here. I was on the phone constantly to the fam, and they're like, "It sounds really tough down there, but it's what I'm going for a walk today and
going to the
all that
beach.
kind of stuff." And I
A
was like,
walk. Oh my
No
God.
Going
mask.
outside.
So foreign. Yeah, that
But
was a
yeah,
wild time.
it's I do really love it up here.
Yeah.
To answer your question, man, and
Yeah.
yeah, there's more gigs and more things just popping up kind of everywhere. Like I think every weekend there is at least a couple of gigs you can go and see, or an event or something like that. So
Shout out to Larissa from Locals in the
I was
Loop.
just thinking that Locals in the Loop on Instagram is our #1 gig guide right now.
I know.
She
Yeah, I follow her.
hustles the scene.
Single-handedly, Larissa is one of the hardest workers and puts together that amazing gig guide. If there's someone playing in a bedroom somewhere, she knows about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you need people like that to
You
because
do.
like you said, it was like you scratched beneath the surface, not that far, but there's things going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. And it is funny too. Like it kind of does amaze me that like it's left up to an individual to like put together a gig guide. Like gig guides were always a thing when I guess more maybe when we had street media.
Yeah.
Like they'd kind of be the
Print.
print media
Yeah,
was
yeah.
sort of more so the place where there'd probably be someone or a team dedicated to like finding
Yeah.
where all the gigs are.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, she's done a wicked job. And
Yeah.
whenever you got to figure out where a gig is, like
Yeah.
that's just where you go.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get Locals in the Loop as a silent partner to the podcast or something.
Oh, we could interview
I was
Larissa.
about to
We
say,
could- let's interview
next podcast
Larissa.
guest
Yeah.
for sure.
That's a way better
She'd be a
idea.
great person to talk to.
Yeah, well, she does her own little podcast now too. She's interviewing bands, and
That's cool.
I've seen one with the Buttermellow guys, and she did another one maybe with Redwood Scoundrel. I think I saw on her
Yeah.
Instagram.
Raw audio.
Yep, yeah. There's all these wicked little people doing awesome stuff up here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just sort of bringing it all together a little bit
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, it's a big, very spread out place as well.
It
I
is.
think
It
that is
naturally
also
is too, yeah.
one of the things that makes it, more not
Hungry.
not difficult, but yeah, you got to be hungry to kind of like, and you got to get in your car and you got to drive and you got to go there,
Yeah.
or
That's
organize
right.
something, which can seem like a bit of a pain in the ass, but it's worth going.
Sunshine Coast, where we create our own opportunities.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
They
right.
love doing early stuff up here. It isn't like Melbourne where
It's a
Melbourne
nightlife.
is. They know what they're doing down there with sport, with music, with
Yeah.
culture.
Everything's very compact though, and I think that plays into like
Definitely.
how so many people end up going to so many gigs, because like I know for personal experience, if I wanted to go to a gig, it was a 5-minute tram or or a push bike ride for and that's for thousands of people who live in the inner city.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more difficult up here to like get somewhere, but
Yeah, you got to drive.
but if you piece together all the things that are going around, like somewhere like the Old Ambo, or the things that are going on in Noosa or the station,
Yeah.
or somewhere in Caloundra or something like that, there's plenty happening. Maroochydore, Soul Bar, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely plenty going on. It's sort of like just got to get off your ass a little bit, or do the morning shows.
Yeah,
Morning shows.
yeah, that
You
sounds
know.
like a good vibe.
I think so. I think there could be something to be said about doing like early morning stuff. Like people are up, they do kind of get out. I know not all music is gonna suit that, but plenty of acoustic music,
Like
blues.
heavy punk. Like while
Just
you're
got to
having
find the right
coffee.
cafe to post up outside if you're gonna play some heavy punk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but could be a thing. Don't rule it out yet.
Don't rule it out. Maybe Jack Dylan and the Villains, Alley Cat Takeover or something.
Yeah,
One morning.
That would work. I can see us in the alleyway.
The alleyway.
Actually, that was where we first started talking about doing something together, was at Alley Cat
Over some margaritas.
for many margaritas. Then we took my wife home, who had a few too many.
One too many.
Like
I
the
love
first time ever that
margaritas.
she's had too many, but
yeah.
we'll hold her to that on air.
That used to be a laundromat.
Shout out Jenna.
The Alley Cat.
Really?
Yeah, when I was younger, it
Yeah.
was like a laundromat.
Well, when I worked there for a bit, so it was like a hole in the wall cafe, probably the size of this room, really. And then the laundromat was next door. And then
Yeah, because there was a flower shop and the laundromat, and then Alley Cat took over the flower shop.
Yes.
Because that was the
Exactly.
tiny thing.
Yeah.
And then,
Man, it used to
Push
be
through.
chaos trying to run a bar there and have like a band in the alley and that whole alleyway full of people. Like, it was like stressful.
yeah.
Like, cops would come and be like, what are you doing? We're like, nothing. Like, everyone get in the zone. Like, get in. Like, everyone's just standing there and
Get
holding
in
their
your
drinks like
boundaries.
this.
That's
Actually,
so funny.
that no, we're talking about that. Demi Kasha played.
There you go.
There, I'm pretty sure she's got a fantastic thing going on.
Yeah,
she
she
played at
does.
the station recently.
She did the locals only one,
Yeah,
the
I saw that.
beginnings of locals only.
Yeah,
There's
Yeah.
another one on Friday,
yeah, nice.
which this podcast will already be out.
Yes.
So you've already come to the show. You've already seen it.
You've been there.
Yeah.
You've been there. You've done it. You've supported local music.
Yes.
But yeah, again, that's just like a little thing, you know, to like try and have one other option of a.
So has that just started? Did you say?
Yeah, so we did that first one with Demi, Calamai, and Buttermellow, and then the next one, you know, which is Emily Rink and Nothing Butter,
This is
and we're
gonna
doing
be sick.
open mic before it
Awesome.
to kind of like, you know, let people have an opportunity
Yeah,
to kind of do like an hour or two of open mic and
Yep.
then 2 original bands.
yeah.
And it's like $10. All the money goes to the bands
Awesome.
Great.
because I do the PA for free.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. The station can make some money if you buy drinks. You know, that's how it supports keeping staff there
Yeah.
and doing
Yeah.
stuff, as all venues make all their money over the bar. So yeah, it's just another one of something, you know, for original artists as
Yeah.
well
That's awesome.
to showcase original tunes, and sounds good, looks pretty good. It's a good little vibe.
Sick.
Ping pong, cornhole.
Cornhole?
Yeah,
What's cornhole?
that like, you know, like sandbags.
Oh yes, yep.
Throw them into the hole.
Yep.
It's an American thing, I
Points.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it has that sort of feeling of like a, I don't know, like a party, like a sort of
Yeah.
college party or something. I don't think we're legally allowed to do beer pong, but you know, sort of that
Don't
vibe.
tell anyone.
Yeah. We'll give you some cups and you can figure it out for yourself.
Here's a ping pong ball and some cups.
Yeah. $20. Yeah, just another one of those things, I guess. To like just keep music vibing up here.
Yeah.
You know, not everyone can always get to gigs, and
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, you just gotta play as much as you can, I reckon.
As soon as we get some public transport that goes beyond the motorway,
Yeah.
we're sweet.
Would be
Yeah.
helpful.
You know.
But that's all right. Just got to suck it up. That designated driver.
Yeah. Just
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, old
drinking's
DD.
overrated. Let
Yeah,
your friends
I'm always
drink.
the designated driver. I
Let
don't
your
drink
friends
anyway.
drink.
Yep.
Yeah,
Take them to a show at the station
yeah,
or a
Awesome.
boiling pot.
yeah,
We've got Old Ambo as well.
Old
Lots
Ambo.
of many good gigs happening out there at the moment.
yeah.
Yeah.
We all know Soul Bar, but go to Soul Bar. Keep
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
Soul
keep
Bar.
going.
Keep going to Soul Bar.
They're doing a dive bar at Old Soul, I've heard. Whispers.
Ooh.
A dive
Yeah.
bar.
Ooh. That's
Sick.
cool.
Yeah, I've heard that. I don't know if this is just some sort of rumor that was spread, but yeah, supposedly Old Souls, maybe they're switching up it into give it a dive bar sort of feel.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Because
Be
there was that
refreshing
place
for
around
that.
the corner. I never personally went there. I think it was kind of just before I.
Oh, the
Was it 11 or something?
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
go there either. Yeah, I heard about that.
they
as well.
weren't, they shot themselves in the foot, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't pay anybody.
Well, that'll get you.
Yeah.
So they opened during COVID and stuff, like they probably didn't have
Yeah.
a good start.
No, it was a terrible start and
Yeah.
a terrible finish.
Yeah.
Quite tragic, actually, but yeah.
Rest in peace, 11.
R.I.P.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Old Soul could be the next dive bar. Yeah, it's such a good little spot. Down
Ocean
there,
Street's
isn't
begging for a dive bar.
it? Yeah, right.
Literally. There's too many fancy things around.
And it is like, has a bit of a divey vibe. Like, it's
Yeah.
got that
Super
classic,
divey.
like, Valley
Yeah.
Yeah.
a few years ago. Like,
Smokers everywhere.
yeah. And it's just like, there needs to be a dingy little
Yep.
pubby dive bar in there with
Yeah.
a loud rock band or just any band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Soul Bar kind of feels like a dive bar in a way too. I feel like maybe they're just taking that vibe and like
Did you
doubling
ever
it
hit
over.
the Soul Bar up when it was in Coolum all those years ago?
I didn't go in, but I knew that it was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never like. Maybe I wasn't old enough or something, but
My
I
first,
remember it being there, like above.
yeah, it was like
the
on the
surf shop.
corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My first band I ever played in, we got a few gigs there, and I think we were definitely underage. And they were like, you can play, but you'll have to leave afterwards. But the owner, I'm not sure who he was, but he was very lenient and
Yeah.
would let us stay around and watch the other bands, and it was just kind of fantastic to be able to go and watch, touring bands as well at that time. Like,
Yeah.
tiny little place in Coolum, and Coolum was nowhere near as busy as it is now then. And you get to, sit around and watch like the Vasco era or, touring bands from Sydney and that kind of stuff play. And it was just like amazing.
One thing we've asked, well, we had another interview, but the computer failed us for that. But one thing we asked Kaiser that time was, like, where do you see the music industry going? Like, with all of these venues and everything shutting down, and like, what's your cure? Like, if you've got any ideas,
I think I was speaking to someone about this the other day, and I'm not sure, like, around the rest of the world, but at least in Australia, I think with all of the venues closing and stuff, a positive spin on it would be to hope that there's going to be more DIY stuff pop up. I think, whether that be house shows or even just putting something together, like in a, someone who's got a bit of a property and just being like, and being like cash for the bands, people getting creative with it. Funny, there's a couple of mobs up here. There's a Basket of Hammers. Have you heard, guys? They do put shows on in obscure spaces and dog.
Hey, dog.
And like in a little old church or in an art gallery somewhere. And I think if it keeps going the way it's going, I think that hopefully will be the future of the control, maybe going back to the artists or musicians or the little guys and putting on events like that, like small like boutique, if you even want to call it boutique events, or
warehouse parties.
Warehouse
it's
parties.
the underground,
Yeah.
just keeping it going because, like we said earlier, it's just that hunger, it's that love of it, that
exactly
need of it.
And there are people doing that up here, and I'm sure everywhere else as well. So if that can keep going, I think that would be what will sustain it. I think, and I think I think people will adapt and do something. But it's pretty scary, isn't it, with all the closures and stuff like that, especially like major venues. Seems like poor old zoo.
R.I.P. Zoo.
Yeah. But like, I remember the Triffid, before it was the Triffid, used to be the warehouse party of Brisbane. So like, you don't underestimate what a warehouse party could turn into.
Yeah, that's right.
Like there was like foam parties there and it was out of control. I don't know who owned it and who let people do stuff there, but yeah, it was wild, those parties. And yeah, eventually, could it be because of that reason that somebody was like, oh, well, this could be a venue?
Yeah, this works.
Yeah.
It's a great space. And, let's do something a bit more concrete with it. Or
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then some people, with the money come in and go, well, let's do it. So yeah, doing those warehouse parties and seeing what they turn into.
Yeah.
Don't know about foam parties anymore. They're pretty fun.
The days of foam parties are done.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty gross.
I had two.
Had to.
I almost drowned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Had two phone parties.
Remember those foam parties that you naturally get on the beach? Have you guys ever had that phenomenon?
Oh, yeah.
You just go down, there's like 2 meters of foam.
Oh,
In
yeah.
like a big swell or something.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that.
and then you're like
You
all
hide
running
in it.
through it, and then
Yeah.
you're getting all itchy afterwards.
Yeah.
And
It's never the cleanest foam.
no, not at all. And my mum was like, I have a run through, and you like come out, and you're like, oh my god, what is that? Coral spawn. Yeah.
All right, well, Jack, you're
Thank
an
you, Jack.
absolute legend. Thank you
for having me, boys.
Yeah, thanks for joining us and chatting about your integrity as
My
an
pleasure.
artist and your process and what's going on. And
Thank you.
we really look forward to what's next for you, bro.
Thank you, man.
It's going to be cool.
Cheers.
Tune in next week for another episode of Rainbows on Wax.
Rainbows.